Alright, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you've seen me use this torch or seen the products of what I've welded with this torch. I don't often film myself doing stuff, but I'm gonna give a little demonstration of this torch today. Several people have asked for that, and I think our Peak has gotten himself one for Christmas this year, so that's what it is. Cobra DHC 2000. It's a pretty handy little bugger. It's got a little deal here for cutting metal, and that's another one so you can freehand cutting metal. It's got a copper tip there, and I've got some optional stuff. That's a acetylene tip. You can use it like a propane torch. Use no oxygen, acetylene only. It mixes right there. And a few extensions which just come in handy a time or two welding up an exhaust manifold or something. And it's got a bunch of different size tips, various hole sizes. You can weld up to I don't know, 5/16 or something, they say. I haven't done that just because get that big I'd rather MIG it. But I got just some different stuff laid out here. A piece of aluminum, some sheet metal, some old rusty sheet metal off that 46 Ford right there, and I'll show you some different stuff that can be done. A couple things before I get started. I made this little stand here. It's just out of an old brake drum off the Honda, I think, and a piece of metal, and it's pretty handy because you frequently have to set the torch down while you're welding. That way you don't have to cut it off every time. You can just put it in that stand, and then when you're ready for it again, pick it back up. And what else? You're welding sheet metal, you need to hammer weld quite often, especially on this flat stuff. And it's good to have a good high crown body hammer and an assortment of dollies. That one there happens to be a Martin. So without further blather, I'm going to set up and do a little welding. Okay. Is it on now?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, first thing you got to do when you're welding with a torch is light the torch. So that's what we just did there. And you need to adjust it to a neutral flame, which means it's equal parts oxygen, equal parts acetylene. You always want to keep the tip clean too, so that that flame is very crisp and not noisy. You notice my band-aid there, I cut my finger a while ago. You'll want to wear some gloves. And what I use for welding sheet metal is this rebar tie wire. I get that from work, find it laying around all the time. And you need a pair of nice cutting glasses, in addition to protecting your eyes to make you look cool. Right, girl?
Something like that.
So, here we go. Take a piece of wire. I got two little pieces of sheet metal set up here. And you just heat it up red hot. And start welding. Now you'll get a certain distance and see that the metal is somewhat distorted due to the heat. So all you gotta do is lay it down right there. You take that high crown hammer and flatten it back out. Now I got a little bit too much heat in that, so what I'm going to do is reduce the acetylene and reduce the oxygen. And then let me put my glasses back on. Then weld some more. Now you can see I'm a little shaky because I'm nervous on camera, and welded a little hole in it there, but I welded it back shut. You can see it's all misshapen there. Just hammer it back flat. And then of course my cheap Chinese sink. Alright, we've hammered that back out flat after I recovered from my seat failure. I just put a pair of vice grips on it. And we're welding again. I got it sitting right on this steel workbench, which is acting like a heat sink. But as you can see, it resulted in a pretty satisfactory sheet metal weld, which by the way is still hot. Another thing you can do, this is a piece of copper wire. You can braze it with the copper, which can be handy in the event of thin metals or what have you. You can do it real fast. It looks pretty. Can you see it?
Yeah.
You can also braze. Over here I got a piece of brazing rod. So we'll braze the back side of it here. This brazing rod's a little bit too thick for this, but we'll see if we can't make it happen anyway. See, there's a nice little bit of braze. The copper's pretty, in my opinion. Alright, another thing you can weld with this thing is stainless steel. You just use a bit of a carburizing flame, which means it has excess acetylene. Just means the tail's longer there. And a piece of stainless TIG rod. And I've already tacked this together, but here we go. Another nice thing about this acetylene torch is you don't have to kill yourself cleaning it. The material's welded, you're welding it together. With sheet metal, you can weld rusty stuff, it's no problem. You just keep that torch angled just like I got it. And keep dipping in your filler rod. Now this is probably 18 gauge or so stainless steel. You can see it's flowing out pretty nicely. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, I'm going to pick it up or flip it over anyway and see how the penetration is. And you can see it's just barely bubbling on the back side, so the penetration is pretty good. See what happens when we hit it with a hammer. So that's pretty cool. You can weld stainless with it. Here's something I've never tried before. I got a piece of copper wire here. I'll just see if we can braze stainless with copper. I'm not so sure if we can. Doesn't look like it's doing right. Well, it will. Get hot enough. I don't think there's no point in doing that. It's easier to weld it with a stainless TIG rod. Alright, the next thing I'm going to try is welding this aluminum. I'll confess I'm not very good at this, but I can do it. What you need to weld aluminum is a little aluminum flux that came in the kit. You need some aluminum TIG rod. Make sure you get your stainless rod out of the way. And you need a pair of blue tinted glasses. And these I got from Cobra. They're the cobalt blue welding products. They're pretty pricey as I recall, but it's what you need. Now when you put these on, you don't look nearly as cool, do you?
Not really.
Come on, girl. Alright, to make this work, you don't need a carburizing flame with this, but it'll suffice. We're just going to heat up our filler rod and stick it there in the flux. So we got a little light coating of flux on it. That's ready to go. Now stainless is the only one you use a carburizing flame on. You can hear that hissing noise. My tip's gotten a little dirty. I better clean it before I proceed. Alright, I've gone ahead and put a little bit larger tip on since this aluminum's a little bit thicker and seems to absorb a lot of heat. But once again, adjust for a neutral flame. This thing uses 4 pounds of acetylene, 4 pounds of oxygen. I've already cleaned my pieces of metal with a stainless steel brush, which says aluminum only. I can't remember if I've done that all the time or not. I find that welding aluminum is a bit of a trick. And so far I have not joined the pieces together. Alright, here we go. This piece of rod is really too small, but it's difficult to get this stuff to flow just right. About the time you see it puddling, it melts through, seems like. We're doing pretty good now. Sometimes you gotta pull the heat away. Again, this rod is too thin, but and I've run out of the fluxed piece. Let's get a new one. You heat it up, stick it in the flux. Since the piece closest to me is larger, I find I gotta concentrate the heat on it. I'm kind of dipping and pulling the heat away as it looks like it's getting ready to spill out. Of course, you always want to be careful you don't fry yourself with a torch. So that's what the weld looks like there. And that's what it looks like on the back side. It appears as though I could have gotten a little more penetration. Maybe we'll break it here in a minute and see what it looks like. Alright, I'm going to try that again just because I want to see if I can do better before I break it. I'm not used to these gloves. I'm feeling clumsy. Again, neutral flame. A little too much oxygen. There we go. And you got to be comfortable while you're welding. I'm not overly comfortable in this position. Uh-oh. What I've done, aluminum's different than metal. I twisted two pieces of TIG rod together because it acted like I needed more. Let's see how that works. After I pick up the piece I just dropped. Alright, here we go. I'm going to leave a little space so we can tell the difference for sure. Takes it a second to get hot enough. Seems like the hardest part is getting it started. And once you get going, it goes pretty easy. Oh yeah, that works better with more filler rod. Which we're going to run out of very quickly here. Let's see how that looks. I think the weld looks a little better, don't you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's about the same. And that's the back side. There's no bubble on the back side, but let's break it and see what happens. Alright, you can see the penetration wasn't the greatest. It was just on top, so obviously I need some more practice with welding aluminum, but you can see it can be done. So that was just a quick overview of what you can do with a torch. You can also cut metal, and I don't really do that with that torch. I just use the plasma cutter or whatever. But you can make very nice cuts in thick steel with that torch with a little practice. What I usually use it for is welding sheet metal and stainless, and I have welded some aluminum, but obviously I need to get better at it. There's always room for improvement. All in all, I like the little guy. It's a good torch. I used it to fix that bell there. You can weld cast iron with it too.